Good evening. Welcome to the Likutey Moharan Shir of Thursday night. Let's just do a quick recap, as it were. We have we've pointed out that there is a neshama that draws into the world the Biur Torah, the explanation, the comprehension, the meaning of the term. While this neshama is in the world, this neshama goes through a tremendous amount of yisurim, of suffering. When that neshama passes away, where the words of this neshama are hot as burning coals. And when this neshama passes away, that sort of like locks up the portal for Biur Torah. And as a result, that causes strife and disputes of the people, of the masses, on the tzaddikim. Because even though they don't realize what it is that bothers them, they're being starved. They're being starved for Torah. And they realize that. I mean, they don't realize that, but it causes them to same thing like a baby cries when it's hungry. The baby doesn't know what it is that he or she needs. They don't have a name for hunger. They don't know what it is. They just know that they are in need, and they throw a racket. And the reason why they do that is because they're hungry, because they need to be fed. The people of Israel need to be fed Torah. Vash v'chol of tachat l'shem. Honey and milk under your tongue. It is essential that Am Yisrael gets a constant diffusion of Torah, because that's life. So when that neshama passes away, the Chacham Aderes needs to bring down two things. It needs to bring down words that are as hot as they're fire hot, and which are the vessels for Torah, and they need to bring down the actual Torah, the actual Kedusha Torah, actually. And what they need to do is they need to beg Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu's heart, as it were, which is the sphere Sabina, is called Leva Elyon. It's called Tzur Levavi. It's called the rock of the heart. Now, that heart is the rock of our existence. This is the foundation on which we base on our existence. So this is Tzur Levavi, and the Chacham Aderes needs to ask Hakadosh Baruch Hu and beg, with supplications, and without insistence, without, no throwing any tantrums, and definitely not throwing his weight around. Because at that particular point in time, when he's sitting there with the people and he's about to teach them Torah, that awakens the force of his good deeds. That's his power. It's called, this is staff of strength. And at that time, when he's going to teach, when he's going to be derish, this is when the force of his mataois, of his staff of strength, is awakened. And he should not use that to get the dibur of Mishamayim. Because getting dibur of Mishamayim with that, using that staff, is going to end up in a calamity. The staff needs to be used. But the staff does not need to be used for taking the Torah from supernal heart. The staff needs to be used to subdue the wickedness and the evil that is inherent inside the people that come to hear the drasha. And as we're going to see now, we started seeing already, last one. It's a cycle. There's always a need to bring down to subdue the wickedness of the Rishon, so that the Torah can come down. Now the thing is that when the Chacham comes, it's not just he has to ask the Baruch Hu, he should give him the word. What he needs to do, he needs to connect himself to the neshamas of everybody which is there. It's a Baruch Hu should give us the word that we'll be able to get the word from Shamayim, with the Korach of Rabbeinu, at the Shem, the first flame of Avram David ben Chana should, who are we? And when the Chacham connects himself to everybody there, to all the neshamas of everybody that is there, what happens is that he elevates up to the Shemayim a very serious chunk of holiness, the tefillah. That holiness excites the Leva Elyon into giving down the Dibur Torah. Commensurately with the Kedusha that was elevated, this Dibur Torah that come down. But Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake. He was told to take the staff and speak to the Stella, to the Tzur, to the heart, in front of everybody. That was to connect himself with everybody and ask the Kodesh Baruch Hu in front of them, give him the Torah. What Moshe Rabbeinu did, when he hit the rock, the staff was not there in order to hit the rock. The staff was there in order to subdue the bad of the people that are there. So as a result, the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu was a singular tefillah, just Moshe Rabbeinu alone. It wasn't connected to everybody. And therefore, the Kedusha that was elevated above, he took the Torah, for sure. But because he pushed it, he forced the issue. There was a deficiency in the Kedusha. It was unbalanced. And that lack of balance caused the fact that there is a deficiency of Kedusha above. That Kedusha was then filled by Moshe and Aaron being Mistalik. Because when a tzaddik is Mistalik, the Kedusha leaves where it goes above, goes up. So it's, tit for tat. This is what we have reached so far. The Rebbe says as follows: the B'schus Torah that you bring down from the level, and it's okay after everything is said and done, bringing down the Torah. Zochel Eretz Yisrael, yes, Zochel to Bechina of Eretz Yisrael, which is a Bechina of Emunah, the Bechina of great Emunah. Is the Bechina that Rebbe says it's a matriculation of Kedusha. When you Zechat Eretz Yisrael, you really can come and elevate yourself and go up and ascend the level of Kedusha in a serious way. When you Zechat Eretz Yisrael, as Rabbeinu says, Alis Halel Choiger Kemfatech. It says that the Melech said, that the Shlomo Melech said, let not the one who puts, who wears on his sword and his war clothes, boast like somebody who just already came from the battle, having won the battle, and takes them off. So let not the one who puts on the arms, boast like somebody who takes off his arms. You already won the battle. Before you won the battle, keep it low. So Rabbeinu says that before you come to Eretz Yisrael, this is choiger. This is like when you're preparing yourself for the battle. You haven't done it yet. When you reach Eretz Yisrael, the Bechina of Eretz Yisrael, then it's Mefatech, then you open it up and you have won the battle. So the idea is that once you get the Torah of the Tzaddik, is that you are Zechet Eretz Yisrael. The Bechinas Mefatech, it's a higher level of higher stature. In other words, now you begin. You already began before. Yeah, but now you really begin. Now you're called, a mefatech. You already got somebody who's battle hardened. You went through the battle, you won your mantle, as it were. And as it says, Pasuk Tzuva Yezuhumayim, this is what the Pasuk says in Tehillim. Hashem opened up a rock and water came out. So you see here from the syntax of the Pasuk, once the tzur, the rock, the lava alien, opens up and gives forth water, which is the Torah, the result is and Hashem will give them the lands of different people, of different nations. In other words, Eretz Yisrael, which was then on, they were inhabited by the 7 nations, which were basically all the children of Cham. It's important to understand that Rashi says it in last week's parsha that Noach, divided the mass land of the world amongst his three sons. In Asia, including Eretz Yisrael, was given to Shem. And Africa was given to Ham. And Europe was given to Yefet. And until Avram Avinu came about, Eretz Yisrael was vacant. So Ham took it over in the meantime. This is the Knani, the Moiri, the Prizi, the Yavusi. These are all. The Yavusi actually is a question. This is probably Shem himself. It was Melech Yerushalayim, the king of Jerusalem. But the rest of the inhabitants were all, descendants of Ham. That's not his Yerusha. The Nakuda of Eretz Yisrael is they were there, they made themselves, they settled there. Kodesh Baruch Hu took the land from them and gave it to Eretz Yisrael. This only happens when the Levi gives out down Torah. The Torah comes down. This is, however, there's a shtickle problem. Eretz Yisrael echad mishlosh dvarim sheboim b'yisurim. There's three gifts that are given through anguish, through suffering. And the main Yisurim, what is the main Yisurim that you have to undergo in order to capture Eretz Yisrael? So this is what we said the last time. These are the slanderers. These are those that put up the hurdles. This is, don't take Eretz Yisrael. That belongs to the Palestinians. They have all kinds of theories that, I don't even want to mention that. All kinds of shtuyot. Interestingly enough, it is these slanders and words of folly that prove that these people are actually Jewish. Because it's very natural for a Jew to be up to snuff on how is he behaving himself responsibly, morally. It's within the DNA of a Jew. Now, if a Jew doesn't know which morality should be followed, then they pick up the morality du jour, whatever's in fashion. And they say, hey, what's going on? This is lack of justice. Have you ever seen any nation in the world that is worried about, but what about the other guy? Never existed. It's amazing because Hitler, and the Germans, all the German nation behind him, claimed that the reason for the Second World War was that which they called the injustice of Versailles. It was the Treaty of Versailles that when the Germans surrendered, the Allies made them sign. So the Germans lost the regions of Alsace and Lorraine and the Ruhr, and they lost some territory, and there were all kind of restrictions of, they couldn't get the army organized, whatever it is that the Treaty of Versailles was. And as a result, the Weimar Republic came up, and Germany basically went bankrupt. And when Hitler came up, he says, okay, this is because of the injustice of Versailles, this is where the Second World War came about. There's one little caveat over here, which if you mention it to any German, they were like, they won't even understand what you're talking about, is that towards the end of the First World War, in 1917, Lenin came up to power and he quit the Allies and he made a separate peace with the Germans in the agreement of Brest-Litovsk. And Germany then got a chunk of Russia that included all of Russia's heavy industry, more land mass, and more people than entire Western Europe put together. If you mention to a German, yeah, okay, Versailles was harsh for you, but you did the same thing and worse to the Russians. And they would look at you like, but what is it? Ma Kesher. Just like, this happened to me, this happened to the other guy. How can you compare? Only a Jew would start worrying, yeah, but what about the other guy? Is the other guy getting fair treatment? But nevertheless, they are the slanderers. And one of the things that we see today that is extremely disturbing but important is there's a rise in anti-Semitism all over the world. And in Israel, especially in Israel. Now I know that people are very upset how unfair it is. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Corona counts for 80 people. The whole, and if they wouldn't have Corona, then they probably gave it to somebody else. How many people don't work, how many people this, how many people that, whatever it is. And the thing is that there's nothing that Haredi people can ever do to change that. Because this is sinas chinam. All the reasons that they are giving are not the real reason. The real reason is because it's sinas chinam. You can't explain away sinas chinam. You can't do away, mollify sinas chinam with reason. They're not interested in reasons. They don't hate us because of the reason. But the reason is the thing that they justify, the fact that they hate us. And this is really very important. The reason why this is important is because we have actually become too cozy with them. It's very difficult to live amongst goyim. It's a separate kind of difficulty to live amongst non-frum Jews. The Chazon Ish was very, very firm about this. When Ben Gurion came to meet him, and he suggested, why can't we just live together? Ish b'emunasa yichya. Let the person live with his own emunah. We're like that, you're like that. So Chazon Ish said, what are you talking about? How can we live together when what you call love, we called kores? Where's that meeting point? So Ben Gurion said, yeah, but we have the same father. In Yiddish is Vater. So the Chazon Ish says, yeah, but not the same mother, not the same mutter. Same mutter is in Yiddish is mother, but it's also a play of words on what is allowed. We don't have the same allowed. What you allow yourself is not allowed for us. And we have become cozy with them. It's not necessarily that you have friends that are not religious. That in and of itself is not the end of the world. It's supposed to be the conflict. But when you take a look at the newspaper, the Haredi newspapers, the local freebies that they stuff into your mailbox, whether you like it or not, which after all overflows the garbage bags, a small garbage bag under your mailbox. So you see a new product by Strauss or by this, and the language is new Pinuk by Strauss. New spoiling. Spoil yourself. Treat yourself. It's more comfortable. It's more fashionable. It's more delicious. Pleasure yourself. These are not Haredi values. This is the pshat v'yisavu b'goyim v'yimudu masem. You mix up with people who are far from the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you learn from their deeds. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts sinner in their hearts. You don't want to stay away from them. You want to prove that you can get work in their businesses. Baruch Hu says, I'm going to show you. There's a Maisa that once the Baal Shem Tov, one of his Talmidim, that came out of the mikveh, and they went in Mezhibos, and the road was muddy, and there was a plank of wood that bridged the mud. And the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmid went on this plank, and from the other side came a band of shkutzim, of goyim. So the Talmud of Baal Shem Tov said to his Rebbe, he was worried that, being that the plank is very narrow, that the goyim would touch them, and, they just came from the Mecca, they would have found them. And as he says that, they heard the goyim say, let's move off. Let's get these Yidden, these Jids, let them pass. So we don't get defiled by touching them. We're no longer sensitive to the fact that we get defiled by our association with the Fry people. So Kodesh Baruch Hu leads us to such a way that they will be disgusted by the idea of associating with us. They are the slanderers. But it's not just them. It's us as well. The minute we forget what it is that we're here for, which is to elevate the Shekhinah, which is to give Nachas Ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we get bored. We get bored. Very simple. We just get bored. And we start surfing the net, start looking for what the headlines say, what did this member of Knesset say, what that member of Knesset say. We start speaking Lashon Hara ourselves. We become the problem. And this has to be overcome. And when we said that the wickedness in the people who are listening, who are in the shir of the Chacham, the Josh of the Chacham, the wickedness within them has to be subdued with the staff of strength of the good deeds of the Chacham, the same way the slanderers, the one who block your access to Eretz Yisrael, they have to be subdued. And the Rebbeinu says they have to be subdued by force, the force of the sword and in death. And this is what you get from Edom, because Edom is the custodian of the sword. This is what we spoke about last week. This week, when he's Etzionik and Edom that lives on the sword, his feet is off the muzzle of Madin, of Mars. You know, that's the muzzle of blood. So from him, you have to get the force. When it says in Siman Zayin as follows, V'da shalei koiches aruchnis, and if you should know that from the spiritual forces that are created from the letters of the Torah that the Chacham was mechadesh, from the Torah that he brought down from the supernal heart. These forces are actual angels. Every letter is an angel. These angels, they receive the force from Edom in order to punish the Rishon, the slanderers of the land, in sword and in death and in killing. And they are being created in the sense of what it is said, it is through the fact that Hashem is giving a saying, an omer, a Torah. These are the letters of the Torah that the Chacham received from Kodesh Baruch Hu. They announce great armies. Means the speech of the Torah creates great legions of angels. This is Tzvarav. Vehen manish b'sarashim, and they punish the Rishon. They are the ones subduing the Rishon. You can see here the parallel between the staff of strength of the Chacham, of his good Mason, that subdues the slanderers, the bad, the wickedness within the people who are there during the drasha. So over here, when the final outcome, the Torah came down, the Kedusha, every single letter is an angel. You know, the spiritual forces from every single letter of this drasha is an angel that received the koyach from Edom to subdue and to punish those who block the way to Eretz Yisrael. Because his angels he will order to accompany you, to guard you in all your ways. You will step upon, bad animals and snakes and serpents, because the Malachim have the ability to punish the Rishonim, which are akin to lions and to a lion and to a snake. And Rabbeinu says, these spiritual forces of these angels, and they are commensurately, how much they have the armies, the brigades, the legions, whatever it is, how big they are, how powerful they are, how capable they are, it's commensurate with the Torah that came down. And the renewal of the Torah that came down, it's also commensurate with Kedusha, as we said, the more Kedusha you elevate, the more people are there, the Chacham connects himself to them and he davens. The Kedusha is elevated and is added above. Commensurately, the Torah comes down. And if there is a lot of Kedusha that comes up, a lot of Kedusha comes down. The Malachim, these Malachim have great force to be able to get the koyach of the cherub from Edom in order to punish the Rishon. But it's a gray scale. It's not a black and white. It's not either this or that. Unfortunately, it all depends on how much Kedusha comes up. The Chacham's Mikasha is neshama to the people that are there. When during his davening, time of before the Drush, the more neshamas are there, the more Kedusha is added above. And the fear of us Kedusha can imshach li'udatayim. Commensurate with how much Kedusha you have elevated above, this is how much Torah is being brought down. And commensurate with how much Torah brought down, the more Torah bring down, can read malachim. The more malachim there. And either, it's either this or that. If it's more, there's more. If there's less, then there's less. Sometimes the Kedusha is so puny. In the malachim that are created from this Kedusha Torah, they have very, very weak force. They don't have the ability to actually punish the Rishon. With the sword and with death. The only thing they can do is just subdue the wicked and make them afraid. That's all it can do. It cannot actually annihilate them. Rabbeinu goes on and on that sometimes it gets lower and lower and lower, which we, Zat Hashem, will talk about next week. But the main nekuda that we need to understand that what does it mean that the slanderers are there and you can't come to Eretz Yisrael? Eretz Yisrael is when you are able to be mechaber in the Torah. When the slanderers are there, you come to davening and you really want to at least notice what words you're saying during davening. But somehow it seems like such an immense chore that you go, next time. When you're sitting to make Vedus and you want to talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu and you have nothing to say, and it comes and it tells you, do half an hour today. 10 minutes is also good. You know that you're speaking to Kodesh Baruch Hu. You know that it's an immense privilege just to sit there. But there is a rock around your hand. There's an armor. It doesn't let your heart feel. Doesn't let you come to Eretz Yisrael. You make a bracha. Okay, you want to make a bracha. You want to make an elech bracha. Sheyotzim. Not saying who knows what. Because Pashut, the same word for word. You get lost after a few words. That's a Sheyotzim, it's just a short bracha. And you start and like after 3 words, you already think about something else. And I'm talking about when you care about it. I'm not talking about when you don't care about it. When you care about it, you actually do care about it. And it throws you off course. It almost feels like, when you take magnets and you take the plus pole with the plus pole and you try to bring them together and they push. You can't do that. The negative and the positive, they draw to one another. But you try to do the 2 negatives, the 2 positive to one another, you can't do it. When you come too close, this is what the influence of Motzia Dibus Haaretz is, that it's blocking us from doing what we need to do. As we learn in Spur Maisis, the previous one. The tachlis is that our head and our concentration and everything we're about is to elevate the Shekhinah. And we don't last even 10 seconds. And we want to. This is where we need the malachim to. So that's why we have to learn Rabbeinu's Torahs and Reb Nosson, Likutey Halachos, and everything else, because we need Chidush Torah. We need Chidush Torah. We need to connect. We need Chidush Torah because we need the koyach of the malachim in order to subdue the slanderers that block us from coming to Eretz Yisrael, from coming to that which we need to do, to overcome what we need to overcome. Bezat Hashem should help us. Bezat Hashem should all be healthy. Should all, Bezat Hashem, have our hearts kindled to beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything, to trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything, for nasa, health, children, relationships, everything. Just trust Him. Throw yourself into Hashem. Just throw yourself into Hashem. That's we should be zeichet to that. Baruch Hashem, we have Baruch Hashem a tzaddik, we have a Rebbe. That we have no way in our small heads to comprehend what it is we're talking about, what kind of kedusha we're talking about, of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. But it's okay. As the Gemara says, Shoyta Eino Margish, the fool doesn't feel. So we don't feel. So there's no chisaron. All b'cheskas fools. But nevertheless, we want. It's a great thing. So, B'ezrat Hashem, this will be here. We'll stop here for tonight. And we'll meet in Yetz Hashem Moshe Shabbos. Yes, one thing. We spoke about it on Monday, but not everybody was here. My wife has asked that we move the Sipurei Maisis shir from Monday to Tuesday. And the people that were there, hold on, let me just enable you to unmute yourself. So just